Great. So for the new members, the old recordings are on in the YouTube channel already, so you can go and have a look later when you have some time. All right. So again, coming back to the session, so it's going to be an introduction to the MVC architecture. Now, MVC, we'll see what MVC stands for and whatnot. But today, the way we have built this application in the last 5 days, it does not follow MVC intentionally, so that we can introduce MVC later and then refactor our code to kind of follow MVC. Now, existing code that we have, it is kind of mix of everything. It's kind of getting the data. It's also, the controller that's supposed to be the controller is also rendering templates. So it's kind of like combining all sort of code into one, and it's gonna make pretty difficult, in a very short time for people to read. I have a question here from Sriram. Will it be possible to attach a link to the YouTube channel? Yeah, sure. I'll just be putting that right now. Just give me a sec. I'll just share the link. And here it is to everyone. Just sharing the link in the chat for everyone. Please follow. New videos will be posted there if you're interested to get the video recordings. All right. So, like I was saying, it's very important to make sure our code is readable, right? It's very important. Python especially promotes code readability very, very highly. Python is probably the only single language that I know that promotes readability from the ground up. It eliminates the curly braces if you're coming from a different language like C or JavaScript, all those blocks and everything. So it promotes an indentation, right? Indentation is follows strict indentation policy. So Python promotes good readability. And MVC is just the next level where you kind of refactor your code and you understand where the code should be, like what's the model part of it, what's the view part of it, what's the controller part of it, and you kind of refactor your code accordingly so that your other developers, your teammates, they can read your code without a problem. All right, so we'll introduce MVC architecture, very, very basic and fundamental. And then we'll use the templates instead of hard-coded HTML. Like I was saying, our existing code that we have today is very tangled, right? The controller code and the view code is very, very tightly coupled. So we'll untangle this code and we'll use templates instead of HTML, hard-coded HTML into the controller. All right. And the third item that we are going to focus on today is refactor our Twitter application, the Twitter application that we have built to follow the MVC architecture. So learn MVC, we'll learn about templating, and then we'll implement that today. All right. So let's move on to the next section. Let's see what we have. So what is MVC architecture? Okay. What is MVC? MVC is an architecture that stands for model, view, and controller. Right? Model, view, and controller. It separates an application into 3 different components: model, view, and controller, like I said, right? Now, what does model stand for? I have on the right side, the diagram that you can see, I think maybe a data flow, rather. The data flow, as you can see, the model stands at the top, and I think the model is the most important part of an application. I mean, in my 20 years of experience, I cannot emphasize how important it's important to have a solid model. If you have a solid model, your application is ready to be extended in the long run. It's very, very important. Now, in our case, model actually, it just the data structure. It's a component that provides data, right? Any application that you can think about, for example, Facebook, Twitter, they deal with data, right? They deal with data. Where do you think the data structure should be, or which component do you think should be responsible for the data? That's the model, if you ask me. Okay, and the framework that we are currently using here is called Flask. It also promotes model view controller, and we should be putting all kind of data-related structures inside the model. So model is the source of data. Let's put it this way. Very, very simple term. If you want data, go to model. All right. So now the next thing that we have here is the controller. Okay. The controller is responsible for making calls to the model, and then sending the data to the view. Okay, so controller, it controls everything. It controls everything. I have a controller has a model, controller has a view. We'll come to the view after that. Controller is basically a middleman that makes requests to the model to get the data. Then it may change the data a little based on different kind of business logic or need. And then after changing the data, modifying the data, or maybe the data is structured a little bit, it will then pass the data to the view so that it can be rendered. Okay, so the controller is kind of the middleman that talks to the model and talks to the view. Okay, let's talk about view now. Now, view is where pure rendering works, pure rendering. If we go to twitter.com, we are given a page that's coming from a view. Yes, it is making calls to the backend to get the data. Yes, the controller is taking the data to modify the data and give you a modified version of the data, business logic and all that. Controller is probably also checking if the user is logged in. So all kind of this, checking logic will be going into the controller. However, the view is only and solely responsible for rendering the information. Okay, so if you go to tweets page, for example, you see a list of tweets that is coming from a view. Okay, anything about view is in the view. Now, very obvious, right? Anything about view is in the view, but a little bit, just a little bit careful. Listen, view is not about HTML only. In our case, it's going to be HTML, but imagine an application that doesn't have a web view. It has a mobile view only. Now, if you're using an application on your mobile, whether iOS or Android, there is a view there. You see something, application, you see view, you see data in there. This is probably not HTML. If it is not a hybrid application, it's probably a native iOS application or native Android application. So the view there is different. The view component, what is being rendered is different, but the MVC structure, MVC architecture stands the same. Okay, the view is responsible for rendering the mobile view as well. Okay, so again, to cut things short, anything that is rendering the user interface is coming from the view. So now we know a little bit about the model. We know a little bit about the view, and maybe we're a little confused about the controller. Like, what is the scope of the controller? Very, very clearly, again, model gives you data. View renders the data. Okay, controller is the middleman. That's how I understand it, and that has worked for me very well. Okay, this is probably not 100% of the case, but this is probably 95+% in your life. You will see this pattern. All right, I have some questions here. Shinka saying that you can't hear. I hope others can hear.
Yeah, we can hear.
Okay, so Shinka, maybe you want to restart your Zoom and maybe look into the audio setting. Let me know if it doesn't solve the problem. Then XA, click the card icon. Okay, all right. So we got some solutions here. Is there an example? Yes, exactly. Sure. So what are we going to do is that in the next slide we're going to see the MVC examples. Okay, so let's go there.
I got a question here. Sorry.
Sure.
So it seems like MVC are pretty much like a standardized industry approach to the web application. Is there any alternative or like other best practice other than MVC model?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a very, very, very good question. So other than MVC, we also have MVVM, that is something followed by different frameworks. Like I believe that Angular follows AngularJS, if you know what it is. It's a front-end framework for building highly scalable applications. And Angular follows MVVM, model, view, and view controller. And there are many other. But MVC, I believe that MVC is the founder of all these extended patterns. It's kind of it kind of gave the people the idea that how the application should be structured. But then there were different needs, right? Then there are different needs like, hey, I don't want really MVC. I want a little change in here and there, but those are like extensions to MVC. But if we understand MVC, that should be covering in the fundamental of it already. But yes, MVVM is one of the other architectures that I have followed in my life, which is basically, I think AngularJS follows MVVM.
Thank you.
Yes, it's coming from Shinaka. Do you have speaker? No, MVC in Fedora, and PHP is pretty good. Yes, PHP, there are many frameworks in PHP. For example, Symfony. I'm a super big fan of Symfony framework. It follows MVC architecture. I know the other pretty famous one. I forgot the name. There is a CodeIgniter, another famous framework also follows MVC. I think every language will have some kind of framework that follows MVC, whether it's PHP or Python or Node.js. All right, let's move on to the next one. Sorry, can you recap what you told so far? Sure. So yes, we were talking about the MVC so far. MVC stands for model, view, and controller. Model for data, view for rendering HTML in our case, and controller is something that sits in between to kind of make calls to model and then pass the data to the view. This session is being recorded. I'll be sharing the recording in our YouTube channel, so you can definitely recap in later. There's a question from Mo. Is there an advantage of using Flask over JS or Express.js? I quickly want to address this question. So Flask is a Python framework, and Express is a Node.js framework, right? Node.js backend framework. Now, I personally, if you ask me, both are fantastic platforms. Okay, so maybe the question is whether Apple is better or Orange is better. I think both are good. It depends on what kind of application that you're building. If you're building highly asynchronous application, okay, that makes a lot of service calls, a lot of IO bound service calls, then maybe JavaScript or Express.js is a good solution. However, if it is not, in that case, Flask or even Django, for that matter, if you know what Django is, it's another Python framework, can be a super powerful framework. Okay, super powerful framework. Now, remember, there is no one size fits all, right? I day in, day out, I do JavaScript, but I'm a super big fan of Python. It's just because the beauty of it and how it solves the problem. It's just another tool to know about, okay? So that, we don't throw the same solution to everything. JavaScript can solve everything. Same way, Python can solve everything. So if we know what are the strengths of Flask and Python, what are the strengths of JavaScript, Express, and Node.js, then we'll be able to, in real life, we'll be able to choose, hey, you know what, let's pick the best tool to solve a specific problem, because we don't want to use a screwdriver where hammer should be used, right? So I think that's how we should be looking at it. So to answer your question, yes, I think there is so much beautiful things you can do using Flask, but Express is a beautiful framework as well to fix some of the asynchronous problems. Let's move forward. Okay, another question from Seneca. Do you put your business logic in your React.js mirror? Global redirect. Oh, okay. So, well, this is now redirecting to a different conversation. I'll quickly answer that. There are some part of the view logic that can be in React. Sorry, maybe I should talk about Angular because I use Angular more. I've not been using React a lot. I'm more Angular person. So from Angular perspective, yes, there are some business logic that resides on the Angular side, which is the front end side. So to answer your question, I think it addresses everyone here. Should we have logic in Vue? It's a very, very famous question. It's like all over the internet. Logic should mostly be in the model, or maybe some logic should be in the controller. But should our business logic be in the view? Because React is basically responsible for rendering stuff. Should be minimalistic. You should not have a lot of business logic in Vue because number one, your application is downloadable. So it's a security threat if a lot of logic goes to the Vue, in my opinion. Secondly, what if you have one mobile view and one web application view? So people can log in from both mobile and website and browser. Then you have to copy paste your logic, one for web application and one for your browser, right? So if you want to share, then your logic should go to either model, preferably, or into the controller if it is rather a less, some kind of small modification. Okay, so there is a principle called fat model light controller. Fat model light controller. The fat model, because the model should have all kind of business logic inside of it, so that doesn't matter if you view changes, it can always share the data, always share the information from the model. I hope that answers the question. All right, I'll move forward to the next one, which is how our application looks before MVC. So this is how it looks. I know many of the participants here did not join the last session, or maybe this is the first session, but this is just to let you know that this is view. This is how our controller is today looking like. Okay, as you can see, it has two routes registered, the first two lines of it, app.route/tweets/username and app.route/tweets. The responsibility of this route is to serve the list of tweets. Okay, now I may want to go to /tweets to see all the tweets from everyone, or I may want to go to /tweets/username, my name, imagine /tweets/Asan to see only my tweet, /tweets/Justin Trudeau to see all the Justin Trudeau tweets, right? So this controller is supposed to allow us to do that. So that's why we have two routes registered here. Now, as you can see, what this route is doing, it has declared a variable called tweet_HTML. This is a controller, by the way. This is, by definition, a controller. It's supposed to make calls to the backend, which is the model in our case. It's supposed to make a call to the model, get the data, and they tell the view, hey, view, go ahead and render this, right? Instead, it defined a variable called tweet_HTML, and then it made a call, which is, you can see the for loop, for tweet in get tweets by username. This is a model call, get tweets by username. You can see that it's trying to get all the tweets from the backend, right? And it's passing the username. And then once we have all the data, it's looping through the list of tweets. And then as you can see, the next line is constructing a full HTML that can be rendered in future. You can see that we have injected like LI, UL, H1, BR, and anchor. These are HTML, and HTML is used for rendering what? Rendering the view, right? So this is a controller, but we injected HTML into it. It's not good. Okay, now to some extent, some people may argue maybe a little bit of HTML, okay. If it is a small amount of HTML, very, very small amount, then maybe you are okay with that because you're saving some time there. You don't want to introduce a new view. Okay, that's maybe fine. But in general, you should not have your HTML in your controller. Okay, that's a bad practice. Okay, now you can see that we are following this bad practice, which is not good. But today we are learning MVC, and we'll see how we can refactor this code into MVC architecture. So far, any question from anyone? I can take it as a no. Let's move forward. So let's see how we are going to refactor this.
I have a question actually.
Yeah, please.
Other than MVC, what other architectures are there generally? I mean, MVC is one architecture, as you told. Other than that, the architectures are there.
Yeah. So other than that, I talked about MVVM, which is model view and view controller, right? And this is another architecture followed by Angular, and there are many other frameworks that follow this kind of architecture. But I think MVC is the mother of all kind of these design patterns, like UI design patterns, like one of the very oldest ones, I guess, and pretty highly used by most of the frameworks available. But there are many other.
Okay.
MVVM is one of them.
Okay. So I just have one more question, one last question. I'm new to this whole aspect of web development. So can you define to some extent what is an architecture?
Of course. Maybe if it is coming, it is in relation to the MVC, right?
Generally, I mean, not related to MVC, because I'm new to this whole aspect of web development. I'm just familiarizing myself with Python generally.
Okay. So
I just got
there is something called design pattern and something called architecture. Now, and architecture in general is about the building blocks or the fundamental of engineering, right? Fundamental. Yeah. If someone is talking, please go ahead. Okay, so I'll proceed. Now, as far as the architecture in software development is concerned, how I take it is it answers the question that how an application should be built. Okay, I'm not going to the definition of it. You can definitely Google about it. More from use perspective, how architecture is used in software development. It answers the question how an application should be built. How an application should be built. Now, every application has its own problem. Okay, every application can have its own problem, and addressing those problems may require a different approach. Okay, there is the place where an architect come into place. A software developer can also play an architect's role. An experienced software developer can also play an architect's role. Most of the cases, an architect should have a lot of experience in software development so that he can start seeing patterns. Right? Start seeing patterns. Hey, this is a common problem. This is a common problem because he knows about the problems for a long time, right? So an architect is an experienced developer who answers the question of how the application should be built. Okay. Now, where this is coming from is from experience, is from the best practices, is from the best practices, right? It's from the experience, from the patterns. Now, if we don't follow the best practices, then we kind of reinvent the wheel. Right? Because imagine in this entire world, there can be millions of software developers. They are facing the same problem. A very common problem is how a user should be logged in. Now, when it comes to logging in the user, there is a security matter. There is user experience matter, right? There is, for example, the user interface, how the user interface should be, right? So all these things needs to be taken into consideration in order to give a solution to the user login. Now, user login is everywhere. Now, after trying so many different things, after being hacked for so many times, people come to a common ground that, hey, you know what? The cookie should have this kind of information. The database should have that kind of information. There should be two-factor authentication. All these things came together to provide a comprehensive solution. Now, this is what I call an architectural approach, providing a great architecture. And this is coming from experience. Research papers written by many software architects to solve this problem. And today we have something like standard. So let's not get carried away. So I'm probably getting carried away. So answer your question, our software architecture provides solution to a specific problem. Okay, and if we don't, and there can be multiple ways of solving this problem. There is always you have multiple options on table. An architect is the person to choose which option is best for the specific kind of problem that they're solving. I hope that answers the question.
Thanks.
Welcome. So let's move forward. So before the MVC, we had this mix of view and controller. After the MVC, we will have this kind of view. So now we can see that we have split the code into two, actually three. The other one is the next slide. The model looks like this on the left side. The model looks like this. If you see the Python code on the left side, the model, it says tweets is an empty array. And then we have two functions there. Get all tweets that returns the tweets variable itself, right? So it gives you all the tweets. The next function that we have is get tweets by username. This takes a parameter called username. All it's doing is going through all the tweets, checking if the username of the tweet matches the username passed as a parameter of the function. If it does, then it appends it to the user tweet and returns the user tweet. It's basically nothing but a basic filtering. It's looping through all the tweets and finding out all the tweets for that user and returning that. That's basically it. We are keeping our model really, really simple, but the idea is that you keep all kind of data-related function in your model. Okay, so this is our simple model. Let's talk about the controller now a little. Now in the controller, as you can see, the first line, I wanted to highlight that in the controller, I imported render template from Flask, import render template. Now, controller, if you remember, controller is responsible for making calls to the model and then transferring the data to the view so that the view can render. So the controller is kind of middleman. So controller should need access to the model and the view so that it can glue these two together. Okay. So now in the controller, as you can see, render template function has been imported from the Flask library so that I can render the template. What is a template? A template is nothing but a HTML.html file that is basically a Jinja 2 template. New keyword, Jinja 2. What is Jinja 2? There are many kind of template exist in the open source libraries, right? In GitHub, if you search for, there are many templating libraries. Some of the most commons are, for example, Jinja 2. Jinja 2 is highly used by Django and Flask. It's a very powerful templating language. In Express, there is something called EJS. There is, yes, you could do this, this.this. Yes, you could do that. You can pass an object and you can kind of do this.this. In Express.js, if you know about Express.js, which is Node.js framework, you can use something called EJS, right? There is also something called Swig. There's also something called Twig if you're coming from PHP background. These are all templating language. What they do is they extend the .html, normal HTML features and allows you to loop through stuff and do different kind of things inside of the template. We are going to be using Jinja 2 here. Very basic syntax. We don't have to be scared about anything because it's actually very simple. Okay, we'll see that. So now we render template. When we call render template, we'll be able to render HTML files from this controller. All right, let's move forward. As you can see that the app.route is the same. The two app routes got registered. And then we have the function, which is get all tweets. This is our controller, okay? In the controller, I'm checking. If the username is there, then get all the tweets by the username. However, if the username is not there, which means I want to show all the tweets, because if I go to /tweets/username, only user-specific tweets will be shown. If I go to /tweets, all the tweets should be shown. That's the requirement, okay? So if the username is there, make one function call, otherwise call the other function. This switching should be happening in controller. This is a very good place to do this kind of thing, okay? So small business logic, if conditions, is perfect to have it inside the controller, okay? Let's move on to the next one. The last line, which is render template. Very interested in that. This is the view part of it. Return render template. The first parameter is that which template do you want to render, okay? Imagine we have something called tweets.html. That's the view part of it. And then I'm passing the variables, username, tweets, and current user. These are three variables that the template is dependent on. The template needs this variable so that the template can be rendered, okay? Username, tweets, and current user. These are three variables that is defined in the tweets.html. That's why this needs to be passed so that the template can be rendered. That's basically it. Controller is doing nothing, but if you can see, controller is doing nothing but making model call, which is get tweets by username or get all tweets, calling the model, and then getting the data. If you see that the data that we got, it is stored in tweets. The variable here, if you see my mouse here, this is the variable I'm talking about, tweets. So it got the data and it's stored in tweets, and then it called the render line of it 1, 2, 3. The third parameter of it is tweets equal to tweets. This. Yeah. So that's basically it. It's got the data and then passing the data to the view. That's basically the responsibility of the controller. Let's move on to the next one to see how the view looks now. Okay. There you go. Now, the view says, just a sec. Getting some noise, so just muting. So yeah. All right. So if you can see how the view looks, the view has, before we get into those percentage symbol and all those if conditions, you see that there is H1. H1 is a HTML keyword, right? For rendering header. Then we have UOL, ordered list. Then we have LI, list item. Then we have BR, stands for break, if you're coming from HTML background. Then you see there is an anchor A, href, and blah, blah, blah. There are, however, some other syntax, which is like, the curly braces, right? The curly braces. And this is exactly where our Jinja 2 is coming into play. So it's basically this curly braces. Inside of it is a variable that needs to be rendered. Okay, inside of it is a variable that needs to be rendered. So double curly braces, whatever you put inside, in between, is a variable that will get rendered. Okay. And then you can see that in the view, we do have a little bit of if condition. Now, if you remember, if you go back, in the controller, we had if condition, right? This if condition was a decision about which model function to call. Should I get all the tweets, or should I get only the tweets for the username, right? This is an if condition in the controller. But if you see in the view, we also have if condition. So coming back to this question, should this if condition be in the controller or in the view? The answer is, if it is more view related, then let's put it in view. Here, I'm deciding what the H1 title should be, what the header should be. Should it be all tweets, or should it be tweets from username? If I see that the username is there, then render tweet from specific username. If the username is not specified, then just the header should be all tweets. This is a view logic. So it can be there inside the view. Okay, so that's why it's here. Let's move on to the next one. We have an OL, ordered list, and then inside of OL, we have a for loop for item in tweets. Now, if you remember, I'll go back to the controller again. Here, if you see my mouse, tweets equal tweets, right? So we are passing the tweets from the controller. This tweet is basically coming in here in the loop. It refers to the same tweets, right? So for item in tweets, so this is a list of tweets. This loop will go through as long as there is a tweet in there. And then the LI is being generated, right? LI is for list item. Then in the LI, I'm saying that render items tweet by tweet username. So this is all coming from the dictionary of the variable. So this is a list of dictionaries. The list of tweets is a list of dictionaries. We covered dictionaries in the last class, okay? A dictionary can have key value pair. Now you can see that I'm accessing the key, tweet key and the user key from the dictionary. This loop will continue as long as there is a tweet remaining in the list. If there are 5 tweets, this loop will continue 5 times, but 10, definitely it will continue 10 times. Then finally, we have an anchor href hyperreference, and we are providing a URL for the logout, and logout showing in the logout text, we're showing the current username. So it will say logout Raptor, logout Asan, and whoever the user is logged in. So this is basically Jinja 2 template, which is a combination of HTML and Jinja 2 syntax. Any questions so far? No?
No.
Okay. So from the MVC perspective.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm assuming you've covered all the coding for logging in and logging out already, right? Is that on your videos?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, but the login in, login out, in our case, we haven't covered a comprehensive solution for login and log out. It was as simple as just taking a username and setting the value for our case, because we want to keep that simple. Right. However, this is only for practicing in this session. The login has been kept really simple, but a full-fledged authentication system is coming in the next session, in one of the next sessions, okay? Where we'll be using Flask provided user authentication mechanism.
All right, so I'll go back and watch the other videos. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So, okay, all right. So if all good, then let's move forward and let's start coding, okay? So like our old sessions, how do we code? I'm not gonna code. Fast API is also good. Seneca has a question, why Flask and not Fast API? Fast API is really, really powerful framework for building APIs, REST APIs, and so on. It can definitely do other stuff as well. But Flask is, yes, Flask is pretty standard. And it kind of, the idea was to introduce to a very famous framework and very powerful framework. Flask can be simple and powerful at the same time, so we chose Flask. By the way, if you know about Django, then I have a class coming up on Django, which will cover total MVC architecture, building model view controller using Postgres, REST APIs, and and actually deploying it on the cloud. Okay, so if you're interested, please let me know. Okay, this is going to be on Django, full stack software development on Django. If you're interested, please let me know. All right, so let's go ahead and try it out, whatever we learned today. So how is it going to work? I'll be sharing a link in the chat. Please click. That will take us to an interface where we can collaborate and code all together. So I would like to have some volunteers. Please help me write the code. Okay, I'll be sharing the, let me go back. So here's the Raptor coder. And this is, let me go to my repos. By the way, all these repos, as you can see, day 2, day 3, day 4, all these are shared and public, so you can access that. So I'll be opening this one, and then I'll be inviting you to join me in coding in the chat. Everyone in the meeting, and then this is the link. All right. So please click on the link, then we'll be able to code together. All right, this is our Flask application. I know many of the participants here did not join the last sessions. Why not we give a quick demo, 1-minute demo of how this application works, okay? So in order to run this application, I'll just hit run here, okay? And you will see it will start booting in a moment. There you go. All right, the Flask application is ready. On the right side, you can see, please log in. It's a very basic HTML. There is a link here on the right side. If you see my mouse, it opens the window in a bigger tab. So I like that one because it gives more space. There you go. Please log in, right? So this is our user authentication. I'll say my name is Asan. I'll log in here. All right. Now I'm logged in. As I'm logged in now, it will ask, hey, let's tweet something. So I'll say, hello there is my first tweet. I'll go back and say hello there 2 is my second tweet. So I inserted 2 tweets now, all right? So now if I go to /tweets, then you can see all my, it's not, I don't know if I broke something. Okay, it's /tweet/Asan is showing all the tweets from Asan. Hi there by Asan, hello there from Asan, and hello there too by Asan. And then you can see that the logout, someone else logged in, that's why my /tweets, it was gone. So I logged in as Asan. By the way, it's not, the login session is shared. So I log in and you log in, that it overrides, your username is overridden. It's something that we need to fix, but for now it's like this. So we have a logout URL here. I can log out and then I can log in again, definitely. Maybe I'll log in as Raptor this time, and then hello there. And then let me see if the tweet shows up, because it's supposed to show all the tweets. I think I broke something. It's not showing all the tweets. Let's see what I broke, but that's how the application is, okay? Now, first thing first, I hope you are able to log in there. I can see there are 8 members, okay? And just to introduce you to the code, the main.py, it has all the code inside of it, okay? Except for the model code. Now, in the one of the last sessions, we created something called tweets.py. So there is 2 files on the left side, if you can see, main.py and tweets.py. If you can see the tweets.py, we had get all tweets, we have add tweet, and we have get tweets by username. These are data functions that we created in the last session. This is our model, okay? This is our model. It allows us to add tweet, and get all the tweets by the username. Now, this is a very simple model. As you can see, we have not introduced database as of yet. It's coming in one of the next classes. Okay, it's coming. Now we don't have database yet, but we're storing all the data in the application memory. Now, what is happening in the main.py, we're using all those functions to kind of get the data. As you can see here, get tweet by username. This is a model function I'm calling and passing the username and getting all the tweet, right? Get all the tweets, getting all the tweet and looping through it. As you can see here, line number 56 to line number 69, this is the example that we saw in the slide. Here, our controller, main.py is the controller, by the way. Main.py is our controller. Here, as you can see, the HTML is also, also in the same function, which is not a good sign. It's definitely breaking the MVC architecture. That's definitely more unreadable. And for this very reason, we are using formatted string here and doing all sort of work. As you can see here, we have some common function. Get HTML form is also formatted string, and we have the form inside of it, which is not a good sign. So let's implement what we have learned today and refactor this code to implement MVC. All right. So can I have some volunteers, please? Who is willing to write the code? If you please raise your hand. I'll be definitely supporting, so you're not alone. Any volunteer, please? I can see Sriram is raising hand. Okay. Anyone else? All right. Feel free to raise your hand. I'm gonna be helping you, so nothing to be afraid of. All right. So Sriram, okay, if you're logged in there, let's get started. So first thing we want, let's target one function. Okay. How about we refactor the line number 8, get HTML form. As you can see, the HTML has been injected there. Why not we refactor this and transfer this code into a template? Okay. In order to do that, we need to create a directory. A directory called templates. Yes, that's correct. And then inside of the templates, let's create something called, this is a form. So let's call it form.html. On the left side, I can see that someone has created a form, and the form.html has been created. All right, so I'll take it, I'll open that, and maybe put it on the right side so that everyone can see both the controller and view. Okay, see my screen. All right, so on the left side, we have the controller. On the right side, we have the form.html view. So let's go ahead and transfer the form HTML code into the view. Okay, we can copy paste line number 10 to 14. Yeah. All right. So idea is to remove all the HTML from the controller because controller shouldn't have HTML. Yeah. So let's reformat this. As you can see, the spacing is not correct. So first thing first, yes, readability is number 1. We can reformat the code. Yeah. Okay, there should be one tab. Line number 2, 3, 4 should have one tab. Okay. There you go. That's correct. All right. Perfect. Now we transferred the form here. Okay. Now you can see that this form has 4 variables. Action is 1 variable. Header is 1 variable. Field name is 1 variable. Button value is the 4th and the last variable. Okay. Oh, 5 variables actually. There's field title. So action, header, field title, field name, and button value. Now, if you remember, I'll go back to our slide. And you can see that in Jinja 2, a variable is rendered not with single curly braces, but with double curly braces, right? So let's refactor. Let's change it. Let's change it to use double curly braces instead. Yeah. All right. Great. So now can someone tell me how many variable dependency does this template have?
Or
5.
Oh,
right? Because action, header, field title, field name, and button value. This 5 variable needs to be passed to this template because it has 5 variable declared in there. Okay. So now who passes these 5 variables into the template? Who is responsible for passing these variables into the template?
Do you get HTML form?
In the MVC structure, this is the view that we are looking at, right? Form.html is the view. Now you can see that form.html has 5 dependencies. Who is responsible for? Yes. So the answer is Mahesh, as Mahesh said, is the controller. Yes, controller is responsible for passing these 5 variables into the template. So let's go to the controller and pass these 5 variables. So we can go to, on the left side, you can see get HTML form, and we can remove the the string completely on the left side, line number 9 to line number 15. Right? We don't need the HTML anymore because our HTML has been shipped to the form.html. Now we need to render this form.html. How do we render this form.html? In order to render the form.html, there is a render function from Flask that we need to import, right? Render template, exactly. But the render template, as you can see that we don't, yes, someone has imported it, great. You can see that line number 1, we have imported render template, and then we are using render template. Great, great job, great job. Now the render template requires how many parameters? The first parameter of render template is what? The first parameter of the render template is which template? Which template to render? Exactly, form.html, right? And then we need to pass all the dependencies. Now, the form has 5 dependencies, 5 variables. So we need to pass all those 5 variables one by one. So let's add a comma and start passing those variables. We have action, header, field title, field name, and button name. Yes, that's the right way, because you don't want to mix things up. You want to pass, the action to action, header to header. Yes. Okay. One more thing I suggest is that maybe add a space after comma. That's a good practice in Python. It's recommended. After every comma, we should have a comma. After every comma, we should have a space. Great. And then it's becoming too long, so we can break into a second line. Yeah. So I just hit enter in here. There you go. Field title, and then the last one is field. The second last one is field name. Field name, okay, and then button value. Button value. Great. So I think we have passed all 5 variables, right? We have passed all 5 variables. I'll hit one more enter just to align the parameters to make it more readable. Okay, now we are calling render template from.html. We need to pass 5 parameters. Action is there, header, yes, field title, field name, and the button value. All right, I think our refactor is complete. Great job. Now let's run this and see if everything's fine. Let's run this. Let's run this and see if our refactor is actually working. Okay. So I'll log in as Hassan once again. Tweets. I added one tweet, and then I'll go to /tweets. No complaints, and then last one. So yes, the template refactor is successful. As you can see, that I could log in, I could tweet, and everything is working fine. So this is working great. One more thing, great job so far. One more thing, you can see that because we didn't have a separate template, like form.html before, we created a function called get HTML form, right? In order to reuse it. It was reused in line number 22, and it was also used in line number 42. We are calling this function just to render this. So instead of line number 22, get HTML form, we can actually copy paste the render template directly in there and render from there. Okay. So I'll do that for you just to show you what I mean by this, because we don't need this common function anymore because we now have template. Okay, someone is doing that already. So we can go to line number 2. We can just keep that because we need those variable. We don't need those values. So let's keep that and then save and paste it in line number 24. Line number 24. Yeah. So now the action will be /login. Instead of passing an action value here, it should be here. Line number 25, it should be /login. So let's replace the variables with /login. So the first action /login, the header will be please log in. There you go. The username will be field title. And then again, the field name will be username. Yes. And then finally, the button value will be login. All right. So now line number 24, maybe we need to add a space because it's going, the indentation is not correct there. Line number 24. So we need to add 2 tabs. Line number 24. One more, because it's inside the else. Yes. And then we need to return the template, right? If we don't return the template won't be rendered. Return. Okay, and the return needs to be inside of the else. Okay, now that we have replaced the common function with the render template function, we can get rid of line number 22 and 23. Great. So this is, again, see, our code is becoming less and less now, right? We don't have we are reusing the template, passing the values from there. We are able to delete some of the old code and reuse some of our templating functions. Now, another place where it was used was line number 45. Okay, line number 45. So let's refactor line number 45 the same way. Okay, in this case, the render template will be saved. Instead, the render template, the action will be saved to it. Yeah. And the header will be what is happening. Yes. Field title will be tweet. Field name will be tweet with a small t, and button value will be tweet instead of login. Correct. Now, since we have transferred the code into our render template function, we can get rid of the code. Yes, so all good. So now we have reused the render template function and now we are using our template, instead of built-in, the HTML function, we are really using everywhere the render template with the correct values. So let's stop this and restart the application and see if everything is functioning. Now, this is really important to test your code, right? We could go ahead and refactor everything and then test our code. That would be a very bad practice. In practical life, many times we go ahead and we're very excited and go ahead and refactor everything. And when we run, we have like more than 10 or 15 errors, right? So many errors. Now you know where to start. what to undo, what to fix. So it's important that every time we achieve a milestone, we test our application to make sure everything is working fine. Now, in this case, you probably understand how important it is to test your application, right? But is it not boring to test your code every time you change it, like manually go ahead and type your name and then test your application? If you understand the pain of it, that manual testing is painful, please raise your hand if you're interested in automated testing. Automated testing. Okay. All right. So if you're interested in automated testing course, please just send your email address in the chat. I'll be contacting you when the course is ready. Okay. So it's going to be solely on automated testing. That will include unit testing and automated UI testing. Okay. Something, if you heard of Selenium, it is going to be something like Selenium, not Selenium, but something like Selenium. Okay. If you're interested in unit testing and UI testing. All right, thank you. Let's move forward. So let's test the application now. We ran it. I'll open it in a new tab. You're asking for a username. I'll put my username Asan. The first tweet will be tweet 1. And the second tweet will be tweet 2. And I can see that everything is working fine. There is no complaint. The form is refactored perfectly. So all good. Excellent job. So far, we have added one HTML template, which is...
Please, can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so where there is render template, you see we have, okay, I think you changed it. Yeah, it's okay. I got it now.
You got it? Okay, all right. Okay, feel free to ask any question, no problem. All right, so we have added one form.html template, which is Jinja 2 template. Jinja 2 template. All right, so it was pretty simple and straightforward. Ready for something more challenging? And that's going to be the next function. The one other place where we have raw HTML injected into controller is line number 59, line number 61, which is user tweet. As you can see here, what are we doing here? We are looping through all the tweets, creating a list of tweets, and then rendering this block of HTML, right? This needs to be refactored. I need a volunteer to create a tweets.html and refactor this code. Tweets.html, yes. I'll be opening the tweets.html on the right side so that everyone can see how the refactor goes. All right. And then main on the left side. So we have the controller on the left side and tweets.html on the right side. Okay. So let's do the first refactor. So we need what? We need a H1. Yes, I think it's there already. All my tweets. And then tweets.html. Okay. Okay, so let's refactor. And I think the OL started, but OL didn't end. Oh, OL did end, but OL ended at a wrong place. So I think we'll have to refactor that. Correct. Yes. Line number 2. Yes. I think we need the LIs in there now. Line number 3. Yeah. So you can see that ordered list has list item, which is the tweet by username, right? Line number 68. This LIs needs to be inside OL. Yeah. So line number 4, we can delete. Line number 6 in the template. Yeah. All right. Now you can see that a list item needs to be a loop, obviously, right? Because it's going to be a list of tweets. So we need a for loop, right? We need a for loop. The for loop syntax, if you remember, do you want to take a look? It's inside the slide. So this is how it's going to look. For item in tweets, or for whatever in tweets, for A in tweets, for B in tweets, and then the item is a dictionary, then you can access the tweet and the username. Okay? So for the for loop, the syntax is curly braces and then %. Yeah, so line number 3, we need to add 2 person signs. Yeah, there you go. One more. One more, there you go. Then we can, no, it should be in between. Yes, space. If after every person sign, I would add a space. Okay, after every comma, I would add a space. It's for readability. Yeah, so line number 3 as well. You can add person. There you go. Here for item in twits. So this is the twits. This is a dependency. It's a twits needs to be passed into this template, which we'll do in a bit, right? After the refactor is done. Great. So item in twits and then end for. Every, like in Python, normally in normal Python syntax, you don't need to end the for loop, but in Jinja 2, you need. Okay, if you're doing a for loop in Jinja 2, you need to end the for, which is line number 7 in the template. All right. Now, in the loop, we have an li going on, which means that it will go on and on and on as long as there is a twit, and then it will render the twit by the username. Okay, now if you see line number 5, it has a problem. It has one single curly braces. One pair of single curly braces should be double curly braces, because in Jinja 2, the variable, to render a variable in double curly braces. Yeah. All right, good. And the by, then the username will have the same. Great. And then the logout current user. Okay, great. I think it's looking really good, looking really promising. Okay. Now, how many variables do we need to pass to this template in order to satisfy the need? This variable has a dependency on external variables, right?
2.
2, exactly. The first one is twits, right? The first one is twits. Twits needs to be passed, and also the current user needs to be passed. As you can see, line number 5, it also accesses a dictionary, but this dictionary is coming from the list, from the twits itself, right? So if you pass the twits, we have all other dictionary variables already inside of it. So twits is the main list that we need to pass, and the second variable dependency that we have is the current user. Okay, so now let's go on the left side, which is a twits.py. We need to refactor the existing code. Great, I think we need to, okay. I'll probably approach it a little slower, because there is a little bit of cleanup needed now. Okay, if you see the code is a little messy, I would probably get rid of line number 63 first. Get rid of the code that we don't need. We don't absolutely need. Yeah, there you go. I would probably remove line number 77 to 79. Keeping things clean is really important. I think that's just some information that we don't need at this point. And then, excuse me, then we need a twits variable. What does the model do? If you remember, going back to basic, what does the model do? What does the controller do? It makes a model call, gets the data, and then passes the data to the view, right? So let's do the first step first. Let's make the model call. Okay, line number 63 is doing the model call, but it should be twits instead of twit, right? Correct. There should be a space before and after the equal sign, because that's a good practice. Line number 63. Good. Don't want to add a gap, unnecessary gap. Line number 62, let's get rid of that. Great. And then now that we have the twits, okay, excuse me, we now can make the render template call. Great. And then render template, it requires the first question the render template asks is that what is the template? Twits.html. That's perfect. Then we need to pass 2 dependencies. Number 1 is twits. Number 2 is the current user, right? The current user. Now, as you know, the current user is a variable inside of the twits.html that needs to be satisfied, but the current user is actually a global variable. So you can just say current user equals current user. So it will just access the global variable. Excellent. So we have two dependencies met already. Okay. There is one problem. There is one problem. Can someone point out what the problem is? We can get rid of line number 68 to 76 because we don't need that anymore. Because we have refactored the code. The code is now in template. And we have some extra blank lines, 67, 68, 69. Let's get rid of that. Okay. Looking way better. Way better. All right. Great. So you can see that how our controller is now looking really beautiful. Why is beautiful? It's because it's less code. Less code is better. You know, less code is better. If we don't have to write extra code, let's eliminate, because more code will introduce more bugs. It will complicate things. Okay. I'm not saying that smaller code is better. If it requires for the readability's sake, then we should always add more code. But this is good enough. Like these two lines of code, line number 62 and 63 is good enough to get the tweets and just render the template. Okay. I believe that this should work. I can't stop myself. I know there is a problem still. I can't stop myself from trying it out. So I'll just go ahead and run it. Okay. And let's see if I think we achieved a milestone. We refactored it. I know there is a problem, but let's see if everything is working. So I go to web view and then I'll open it a new tab. And then what we rendered was, what we refactored was the list of tweets. So tweet 1, then I'll go back and add tweet 2. So I added 2 tweets. Okay, something happened. I don't know what. Let me tweet again. All right. And then if I go to /tweets, there is a bug looks like that we need to fix. /tweets is not showing anything. But if I go to /tweets/Asan, it's supposed to show there's an internal server error, which means that we have a problem. So let's see what it is. It says on the right side, if you see, okay, it says that undefined variable tweet. The tweet is undefined. All right, where? It's inside the template. As you can see here, if I see what I'm highlighting here, tweet by username. It says that undefined variable tweet. Okay. Why is the tweet undefined? So we don't have any tweet? Is that possible? Or, okay, let's see what happened there. Okay. So it says that, okay, there you go. There you go. Yes. But tweet in tweet is fine. But tweet in tweets is fine. So our variable was not matching. But tweet in tweets and then tweet username. I think that should work. All right. I'll stop and I'll restart. And I'll go homepage, log in with Hassan, my name, and then my tweet 1, and then tweet 2, and then I'll go to /tweets. It's not showing the tweets. I know this is an old problem, but /tweets/Hassan should show all my tweets. Great. It's working. The template refactor is working without a problem. You can see it's showing all the tweets from me when I went to /tweets/Hassan. There are 2 problems that I can highlight already. You can see that when I went to /tweets/Hassan, what is it saying? It's saying all my tweets, right? I think we want to change it to all tweets from Hassan. If there is a username, we should say, or maybe Hassan's tweet or username's tweet. If it is Mr. A, then Mr. A's tweets. Okay, that's number 1 thing that we want to change. Number 2, the second problem is that if I go to /tweets, it's not showing any tweets. It's again saying all my tweets, but is it all my tweets? No, it's everyone's tweet, right? First of all, the wording is wrong. The header is wrong because I'm on /tweets. It should show all tweets instead of all my tweets. And then it's not showing the tweets that I just tweeted now, right? My tweets are not showing up. So there's another problem. So let's go ahead and fix that. How do we fix it? Anyone? Any suggestion? No one? I think the first thing is that we need to see from the data perspective. Now, controller always talk, data comes first. From data perspective, the first requirement is that there may be a username, there may be no username. In case there is no username, then I need to get all tweets. In case there is username, I need to get all the tweets by that username, right? So line number 62, we need to add a check there, okay? We need to add a check that if username is there, then get all tweets by username. Otherwise, just call get all tweets. So we can check if username, then colon, yeah, then it's fine. Then tweets equals get all tweets from the backend, from the model. Otherwise, else, should be else, yeah, and yeah, I see where you're going, yeah. Else, tweets equals get all tweets. There should be a model function. Excuse me. There should be a model function in the tweets.py. If you see my screen, there are 3 model functions here. Get all tweets, add tweet, and get tweets by username. Get tweets by username, we are using it. Get all tweets is another function that we can call to get all the tweets. Get all tweets. Get all tweets doesn't take username. Excellent. All right. This should fly. This should fly. Now I can see some big spaces in between 2 parameters that we are passing to render template. We don't need that. Like between tweets and current user. There are some big spaces that we don't need. There should be only one space. All right, that looks good. Now, another thing is you can see that there is a duplication. Line number 64 and line number 67. Great job. Yes, we don't really need that because we can just, after the if condition is done, we can just call line number 66 and that would do the job. End of the day is going to render the template, so we don't need it there. Okay, looking good to me. I think this way now our one problem will be solved. I'm excited again. I can't wait to run it. I know it doesn't solve all the problems, but please allow me to run the application to see if it works. Okay, I'll stop. I'll rerun. It should fix one problem. All tweets should now show up. Before it was not showing up. So I'll go, I'll log in as Hassan, log in, and then my first tweet is tweet 1, and then tweet 2, and then after that, I'll go to /tweets, and there's an internal server error. I think we have a problem, and it says the tweet is not defined. Again, tweet is not defined, and it's saying that the tweet variable does not exist. Let me see what's happening. Okay, I'm surprised to see that. I have tweet, and tweet usernames from tweets and tweets. Okay, I think that's yeah, I think that is fine. I don't see a problem there. I do want to see what data is being returned so we can debug this together. Okay, so how about this? Line number, between line number 67 and 68, I would just on behalf of you, I'll just add a line called print. Okay, I'll add tweets, add some signs here just to make it distinguishable, and then print the tweets. Okay, just to see what data we are getting, because I can't believe that the tweets are not, like it says that the tweets don't exist. So let me go and rerun it. Let's see the data is structured there, so we can better. Okay, I need to stop and rerun, I guess. Yeah. There you go. All right, so let me log in again. Son, log in, and then tweet 1, and then tweet 2, and then I'll go to tweets, and then we have the internal server error. We replicated the error, and let's see what we have in there. So you can see that, you see on the right side, I'm highlighting it. If you see my screen, it has username and it has tweet. It has username and it has tweet. So no doubt that we have both username and tweet variable in the list of dictionaries. So that's not a problem at all. Okay, so I don't think that data is a problem. I think the problem is somewhere else. Okay, so if I go to, again, just to confirm, if I go to /tweet/Hasan, it should, okay, I still have the same problem. So let's go and look at the tweets.html now. Okay. Okay, so now what we are doing here, okay, the complaint that we have here, again, to read the error, is that tweet is not defined. And okay, and we have tweet user tweets. Okay, so line number 1, it says all tweets from tweets username. Actually, it should be the current user, right? As you can see here, we are already accessing the tweets. Tweets is a list. Okay, it should be the current user. Current user. There you go. Then we want to loop through tweets because we passed tweets. So tweet in tweets, and tweet has a tweet by username. So this should fly. Okay, this should fly. Let me see. I'll rerun it. Okay, and then see every time if we had automated testing, we could just run the automated test to test the entire flow. That would speed up our development process. That's why automated testing rocks. Okay, so I added 2 tweets, and maybe add 1 more, 3, and then I'll go to /tweets. Yay, it's working. It's working. Excellent. So that was the problem. I'll go to /tweets/Hasan, and then you can see that it's working. So both are working. So if I go to /tweets, it's supposed to show all tweets, not from Hasan, all tweets. It should show only from Hasan, only from the username, if the username is there, right? But /tweets is not supposed to show my username in here because it's tweets for everyone. And then if I go to /tweets/Hasan, then this is fine. This is working fine. Now I'll log out. I'll just log out just to show you. I'll log out and then I'll log in as Raptor. And then I'll add 2 more tweets, Raptor1, and then go back and Raptor2. Now we have tweets from 2 users, one from Raptor Hasan and one from Raptor. Now, if you go to /tweets, we should see tweets from both users. There you go. Tweet 1, tweet 2, tweet 3 from Hasan, and Raptor1, Raptor2 from Raptor, right? But this is wrong, right? All tweets from Raptor, this should be all, instead this will be all tweets. So let's fix that. So how do we fix it? I think you're absolutely correct. I'm seeing on the right side, tweets.html, someone says that we need an if condition. Yes, we need an if condition. And the if condition should check if the username is there. Now, if you're checking the username and not printing the username, if you're checking the username, then you don't need those curly braces. Okay? Double curly braces is only for printing it. Yeah, if username. No, not tweet.username. If username. So we need to pass a third parameter. So far we have tweets as a parameter, current user as a parameter. We also need to pass a username parameter if the username exists. So that will be passed from the controller. Okay? If the username is there, all tweets from current user. Yes. Otherwise, which is else, yeah, then the header will be all tweets. Excellent. And then we have endif. Great. Great. I can see that it's looking good. The OL, I'll add a space in, like, in a gap in between here. Okay. And I also, if condition, I'll add a tab here and here so that, you know what, yeah, I think we added one extra, so I'll just remove that. And then you can see OL started with an indentation. We don't need that. I'm very, very picky about the indentation because it just better coding. And I think we should always practice better coding. So indentation is really important. Another thing I would do is line number 9 to line number 11, I'll add a tab here because it's inside the for loop. So I can see that for is started, then inside of the for, I have the li. So it makes it more readable. Okay, great. I think this is looking really good. There's one more adjustment that we need to do. We need to pass this username, line number 1, the new username that we introduced, that needs to be passed in line number 71 on the left side. You can see we're rendering template, but and there is a new dependency that we have introduced, right? The username itself. The current user will be there because we need to show the current user in the logout button. And then we need to pass the username. Yes, great. So username is username. So now, again, to just go back to the basics, what controller is doing is collecting the data and then passing the data to the template to satisfy the template's needs so that the right information can be rendered on the screen, right? That's the beauty of MVC. Model doing the data work, controller doing the management work, and view doing view-specific rendering. If you ask this view, hey, who is the username? Who is the tweets? Where is the tweets coming from? The view say, hey, I know nothing. It just got passed to me. So I'm just doing whatever I'm supposed to be doing, right? The view has kind of no idea where the data is coming. And that's the beauty of it. That's called the separation of concern. It's $1 million term, if you ask me. Separation of concern. Good software development is about separation of concern, right? It's asking the right question. What needs to be in this function? What needs to be in that function? We should never make things up. In the Linux world, there is a say called do one thing and do one thing right. Do one thing and do one thing right. So when your function should be doing one thing only and do that one thing very, very correctly without a problem. Okay. So the view, again, from that coming from that principle, the view should be focusing on rendering things. Your controller should be only managing, like getting the data and transferring the data to the view, right? And then your model should only be dealing with the data. It doesn't care who the controller is and who the view is. Your model shouldn't change most of the times. Sometimes there are need in life. Life is not always black and white. It also has some other shades, right? But your model should not be changed based on your controller need. Model should be very solid. And when your model is solid, your application is ready for extension. It's ready to go to the next step, right? Because code is not tangled, everyone can work on it. And if you have something like beautiful MVC architecture, people will love your code. And it will be easy to fix bugs and extend your code. All right, so let's go ahead and test. I don't think we need line number 69 anymore, which was basically for debugging. Okay, and then let's stop it and rerun it. Open a new tab. And first I'll log in as Asan. Then I'll add Asan 1. And then go back, Asan 2. I'll go back and then Asan 3. So I added 3 tweets. And then I'll go to /tweets. And you can see that, oh, we have all in big headers. You can fix that. Asan 1, Asan 2, Asan 3. And log out Asan. It's all, I don't know why it's all big headers, showing bigger fonts. I think we maybe made a mistake somewhere here. Okay, what is it? Can someone point out the problem? Exactly. I think the H1 wasn't closed. That's why everything is becoming bigger font. Okay. The H1 wasn't closed. Great. So let's save that and rerun it. Okay, rerun it. Yeah, I rerun it. Twitch should have nothing. We'll go home. I'll log in quickly, Asan, and then Asan 1, go back. Asan 2, go back. And no, let's go to tweets to see if all tweets are showing up. There you go. I'll log out. I'll log in as Raptor, and then I'll say Raptor 1, go back, Raptor 2. Okay, then let's go to /tweets to see tweets from both users. There you go. Asan 1 by Asan and Asan 2 by Asan, Raptor 1 and Raptor 2. Great. Now if I go to /tweets/Raptor, I should see only tweets from Raptor. Excellent. If I go to /tweets from /Asan, great, it's working great. Excellent. I think it's a very good job. Very good job. Do you think you learned something today?
Definitely.
Great. I think MVC changed my life when one of my teachers in I think it's 2008, he introduced MVC to me. Okay. I was doing most of the I was doing similar kind of work. I was doing separation of concern, but I didn't know that MVC is a term that exists for so long time. MVC is not a new term. It's a very, very old term. It changed my life. It changed the way I, as a developer that time, can think about the application, how to structure this application. This takes, surely this takes the development mindset to the next level. All right. So we do have, I think we started, we still have some time. I think maybe spend 5 or 10 more times to 10 more minutes to answer any question. Please feel free to ask.
Yes, I have a question here.
Sure.
It's not about this code. It was the code that we're starting from this lesson, where we see the slash tweaks endpoint breaks, right? It breaks, we don't get anything. I want to check my understanding why it broke there. Was it because I think that route, the slash tweaks, we check in the username, and the username was actually defined from the endpoint. It passed in, but we're doing the for loop there, and obviously that username is empty or
exactly. You're
it didn't loop through that whole thing. That's why it returned empty HTML.
No, it was actually looping. It was what it was doing. We were calling get tweets by username. Okay, we are passing the username.
Oh, okay.
So what happened is that it went to that function. It was checking for none. It was trying to find out a match for none, and there is no match for none. The default, if the username is not passed, the username default is what? None. None is the Python version of null. So it was checking null, right? And then we couldn't find a value there because it simply doesn't exist. So it was a logic error in the code that later we fixed by checking the username. Now line number 64, if the username is there, get tweets by username. Otherwise, just call the get all tweets function. So now it's fixed. Before it was edge case that we should have fixed. And this kind of edge cases actually can be fixed using test-driven development. This is a very, very famous way of, the very, very famous, coding style. You write your test first, and then you actually implement your function. So as we add more tests in the future, these problems will be fixed. We'll be adding a little bit of TDD in here as well going forward. Any more question from anyone? All right. So I would really appreciate if you can send your review to me, like how I can improve this session, how, if there is anything else that you need to learn. Do let me know if anyone is interested in full stack Django development. It's going to be, if possible, I'll be doing that in person because Django requires a lot of attention. There'll be longer session, maybe at least 3 hours session, and it's going to cover end-to-end course on Django. There is an upcoming event coming. There is an event coming, I think on the 28th. In case you are interested to join in person, sorry, I'll just confirm the date. I don't know why I'm logged out. Okay, I'll just confirm the date with you. The next upcoming session is here. And meet and greet, this one. So if you see my screen, it's on Friday, 28th. Okay, so it's the upcoming Friday, 28th from 6:30 to 7:30. It's in Brampton. So if you're in Brampton, feel free to meet me. We can discuss about all sort of coding problems, how you are using coding in your life. If you have any kind of question, we'll be able to answer. It's just a a meet and greet session. So hope you'll enjoy. We'll have some coffee and talk. All right. So feel free to join this session. And what else? And I think a few more slides to cover quickly is just this one. So what is the next class's agenda? Next class, we are going to introduce SQLite, SQLite. You call it SQLite or SQLite, up to you. Both is correct. SQLite is a way to store data in a SQL way. Okay, so it's a more relational database structure. I don't know who has experience with relational database. Anyone? If you raise your hand. Great. So if you don't have relational database experience, then I would highly recommend that you don't miss that session. We'll be talking about tables, a little bit about data normalization. XA, do you know what data normalization is? If you don't know about data normalization, then I mean it's really important concept. If you really want to become a full stack developer, and make an impact, you need to understand how database works. And there are two main streams of databases, two kind of databases that we have. One is the relational database. The other one is a document-based database. Okay, document-based database like MongoDB. We are going to be using first the SQLite here, which is a lighter version that doesn't require a server, right? But it sends the message across. It can do all sort of, mostly the standard is SQL joins and relations, and all those can be done using SQLite. It's simple and easy to learn. Okay, I'll highly recommend that you join that session. We'll be storing the data in SQLite, and then we'll refactor again. We'll see how to refactor. We'll see how to use SQLite, and then refactor our model to use SQLite to get the data. At this point, every time we restart the application, the data is lost. The tweets are lost. Now we'll store the data in the SQLite. So if we restart the application, the data will persist. And then as we reload it, we'll see all the saves data are coming from the database. So our model will take care of that, right? Our controller code doesn't need to change because the controller doesn't know. Like I said, your controller shouldn't know where the data is coming from. Your view shouldn't know where the data is coming from, right? It just knows that, hey, I have this dependency, meet this dependency. Controller will make model call. Model will get the data from the SQLite, and controller will be happy at passing the data to the view. So it's gonna be end-to-end. I will highly recommend that you join that session. And please don't forget to practice, because if you don't practice, you'll forget. Okay, great. Thank you so much. I think we're at the end of this session. I would highly appreciate if you let me know how I can improve the session, things that I need to change in order to make things better, smoother. And again, do leave your comment in the chat, and hope to see you in the next class. And hope to see you in person in the meet and greet session. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.